Are you?
Yeah.
Are we recording?
Oh. Yeah, we're off.
I always get it wrong. I don't know what's happening.
Oh,
here.
yeah, it is. It is recording.
Story of my life.
Trust me.
Fuck.
This right here is episode 28. After a little bit of
punk rock safety, bitches.
After a little bit of confusion at the beginning, Dave got punched in the eye.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on here, but
what?
I wish I had a good story to tell, but nah. Nevertheless, I'll make one up during the course of the episode.
That's called doo-doo eye, my friend.
Hey,
pink eye. I think medical professionals call it
I got
pink
my
eye.
decks back, or as our Kiwi friends would call them, dicks.
Dicks.
Back from Ben, right?
Let's not take our dicks out in the on the.
Did you read this fucking safety warning, man? Like, I want to know when punk rock got so safe, right? Because it says,
is there a warning?
Skate within your abilities. Injury or death may result from improper use. Wear safety gear. Follow traffic and pedestrian safety rules. I think Fat Mike needs a letter. I think.
Yeah, on some letterhead.
Yeah.
The
people stains.
We should get stationery in the merch store. Letterheads and shit.
Oh, wax seal.
Fucking stationery.
Why not?
Wax seal, stationery,
a stapler,
all of it.
I need some shit. I need some stuff for my desk. A pen holder,
a red stapler.
For all the forms.
The fuck is wrong with you?
So many things.
A lot.
Not just the eye. It's not just the eye. So episode 28, and this is almost always the case, but we literally haven't talked about a topic yet.
No.
I mean, sometimes it's like 30 seconds before we hit record.
We got to warm up to it, don't we?
We haven't even done that. Well, we got the 7 or 8 minutes of bullshit that we've been told.
Of really shitty content we have to fill before we can get to the good stuff.
Fast forward. And good is relative, man. Like, a lot of things are good compared to the first 7 or 8 minutes.
Yeah.
So, Ben, what's going on behind you?
Oh, I think Izzy, that's my daughter. What's up, Izzy? Izzy sometimes listens to us, which for a 16-year-old, I think is a big move. Putting out, she has to put up with me all the time. We're going to try to go to this show. That's Lambrini Girls, and they fucking rock, man. They're playing at a little place here in Denver from the UK. And I don't know, what is I'll look up the song. It's like Cunt Festival or something, which is a really...
I don't think you can use that word.
On this podcast?
Time, you're from Australia. Come on, man. It's like the national word over there.
Yeah. I really don't think it's a problem. Hold on. I'm looking it up. It's going to be, this is important stuff.
Yeah. This is really good.
This is really important.
That's who it is. I don't have any new tattoos. I don't know what else to tell you.
The fear is Izzy, if she is listening to the podcast, shout out Izzy. And the unfortunate thing is she's going to grow up with a warped sense of what's okay to do in the workplace.
Yeah. Oh, here it is. Cuntology 101.
Oh,
fucking incredible, right? That's the first one. But company culture is one of the songs. So
shout out.
I'm telling you, this is safety related and probably a business expense.
Definitely a business expense. Shout out IRS.
Yeah.
They're going to be abolished just like
I was going to say, do we still have that? I think by the time this episode airs, they're gone. Fuck those guys.
They're gone. Yeah.
No new tattoos, but one in the works. So
okay.
Oh yeah.
Nice.
Give me a week or two. We'll see.
Excellent.
Dave, we know who's behind you.
Better be a neck tattoo.
Right in the middle.
Yeah. You boys know I've got so if this podcast goes away, I think it's going to go. This is going to make a bit of sense, but this is we all know it's the Mexican from NOFX, El Jefe, and I guess the good thing about punk is you can have Mexicans and trumpets in your band, and after a while, people get used to it.
Starts to sound a
then they
little
call it
ska,
ska.
but you can, yeah, but you can get away
I
with
think
it.
one brass instrument's okay. I think the second one, then you're
Oh,
in
yeah.
dangerous territory.
Yeah.
There's a good bumper sticker that says keep honking. You're just part of my ska band now.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen that. And I mean, yeah, I mean, you got to be careful not to end up as a Mighty Mighty Boss Stones, hey?
It's a tragedy.
So many lives have tragically ended that way.
Dave doesn't have any. Do you have any new tattoos? You're still nursing
No,
that arm back to health.
I've been traveling.
Oh, you were in Texas. You didn't get a "Don't mess with Texas" flag, full chest piece.
Yeah, I got told I wasn't allowed to use that C word in Texas. I actually asked, I was presenting, I said, what are the, because I usually,
What's the word? Conservative is the C word?
yeah, exactly that word.
man.
Yeah.
What word?
I think you could use that one.
The
That's
one
right.
about the ology that he was talking about earlier?
Yeah,
Oh,
that's frowned upon.
okay.
Yeah.
It sort of is.
That's a
in
weird
this
line
country.
for them to draw, given everything in Texas. Can we...
It's
Hey,
you
I
got to
don't
draw
make up
one
the fucking
somewhere.
rules, man. I don't make up the rules.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough.
Okay. Well, I've said it enough for you on this show.
Yeah.
I haven't done my research enough to know which states still have the death penalty, so I just tread carefully everywhere.
Oh, it's 100% Texas.
It's Texas.
And it's just any sidewalk
Yeah.
features the death penalty. All right, Ronimal.
I got Knapsack behind me, which is a kind of a 90s emo punkish band.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. I saw they're gonna play a festival in Vegas. So I might have to head out there in October.
Ooh, field trip.
Yeah.
That's all I heard.
Field trip. The bar at the Punk Rock Museum will be waiting.
Oh, Nicholas.
Shout out, Nick. I bet he still listens. I bet he loves a shout out every
Still?
few
That
episodes.
assumes he did at one point. Which
Well,
I'm not sure either of those assumptions are true.
We know that Fat Mike listens. 100%.
100%.
Yeah.
We'll get that letter out to you on stationery.
There's no question now that Fat Mike's WhatsApping or messaging El Jefe and saying, "Hey, the boys have got you as a backdrop."
Sure.
Yeah, he definitely refers to us as the boys.
The boys, yeah, and everyone knows who he's talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
Perfect. Speaking about talking about,
what are we going to talk about?
I feel like Dave has taken this on because he's got an image that he said would make sense.
Well, we did talk about power last time, and we touched upon this topic, and it's come up a few times for me in the last week. And Ron, you work or used to work or have worked for international organizations, and Ben, you probably traveled out one of the Americans who've been outside the US a few times. But this idea of like working cross cultures is kind of always interesting, because I think safety for a long time has all been about global standardization. When you walk into a big global company, they're just like, fuck it, everyone do it like this. And then they say, why is Africa and South America so fucking unsafe? Or Asia or somewhere like that. And I guess it's kind of an interesting topic. And I think when it comes to punk, like, you know, do it however you want, wherever you are in the world, and it's still kind of music. So I just thought I'd be interested in your guys' views and about how do we manage safety globally and account for local cultures and things like that. And that's why I got El Jefe, because I thought, you know, like how does NOFX survive with a Mexican in their band and stay on the same page?
He just won't give up saying it over. I mean, it is it is true. There's an album named after that, by the way. White Trash.
And Kill All the White Men. Good song.
I have a feeling I know how both of you fellas maybe feel about sort of hearts and minds efforts, and Patrick Hudson did a lot of work with Royal Dutch Shell on that, and whatever the mechanism was to work through all of that, I think you can separate that maybe from the actual understanding that, you know, holy shit, this message is not being heard the same way everywhere. And I always talk to folks about like, I remember talking to my mom years ago about like, hey, I think this would be cool. Not Dave's mom, different conversation, but like, hey,
Different
you
time.
guys you should travel. And this comment of why would I travel when I already live in the best country in the world, right? It's a
Yeah.
unique
America.
feeling in America. Yeah.
Yeah.
But also this thing of like, when you're talking to someone who speaks another language and they're not getting it, right? And you just start speaking louder and slower, like some fucking magic thing is going to happen and they're going to understand. And I think that we do that in safety, not even just across cultures. We just we just think we've got some monopoly on good ideas.
Yeah.
And if we say them slower and louder, people will get it.
And it's most fun when people are in a mood where they've got zero tolerance, like the TSA folk at security trying to explain to
Right.
people about belts and shoes and laptops, just with zero tolerance.
Yeah.
Just shout, and they do. They just shout.
Yeah.
It's fucking amazing.
Yeah.
But back to Hudson. If you talk to Patrick Hudson about some of those stories that came up during that work, I mean, it's incredible stuff, right? Of people getting hurt or killed on the job, and that just being acceptable in some parts of the world where people like you might get killed at work, and we just have to move the body and get back to it. And that, so you're going to start talking to people about just culture, and they just moved a dead person so they could meet a production
Sorry,
deadline,
that's not really
right?
funny.
Well, it's kind of funny in that it's stupid, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like we know we're going to lose our jobs and our families won't eat unless we just get on with it. And we're going to talk about a reporting culture, and they're like, okay.
But you can't it's on my shirt, Ben, by the way. Did you get one of these, Ron?
Yeah.
I don't have one of those. I asked for one of those, and he's like, "Oh, we don't give those out."
I never said that to you.
You 1,000% said that. You're like,
Okay,
these are only for
I probably
Magpie
Anyway, I like it.
people.
said that.
And I was like, "Oh wow, what a fucking asshole this guy is."
Yeah.
Yeah, it's foreshadowing. We're buying Forge Works.
Yeah, the branding's cool. It's almost on ForgeWorks par in terms of branding. But
It's a good start.
I don't even remember what I was going to say.
It's not important.
Not important. It's not important.
No, I mean, this is it's a really big and tough question because I feel like, yes, the easy answer is, oh, just one standard everywhere because like ethically, how could you accept less?
Yeah.
Or one approach everywhere because are we going to have to create a new way of doing it every single place we go? I mean, from a business perspective, that creates significant challenges for scaling and things like that. But I mean, the world doesn't work that way.
No. And I think, I think the question, like, you can't, of all the conversations we've had, somewhere in the last 27 or so episodes, we've probably said, like, you can't judge people for thinking the way they think, they're products of their experience. And I remember doing a power station project.
Oh, we said it now.
We've said it now anyway. Fuck
Yeah,
it.
now it's said.
I remember doing a power station construction project in the Middle East. I'm going back a long time. But the project got a national award because there'd only been 2 fatalities on the project. And the insurance company had insured the project for 10 fatalities. And that was the expectation was it was going to be, more than that. And I had this UK safety person who just couldn't rationalize the sense of he was being hailed as this hero and they got this big award and there was 2 dead people in the last 12 months, but no one was trying to.
And they had to kill another 8 to meet the goal.
But
and that's the unfortunate part. It's like, how do you pick, right?
You lose your bone.
But no one was trying to be an asshole.
4 of them are clear.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's just what they knew. They weren't trying to be assholes. Like, just and I think that's the question when we sort of overlay sort of Western or Anglo judgment on other cultures, and like the number of times I've had to listen to fucking conversations about individual risk appetite in Africa, like, oh, these people drive around in cars in the back of cars with no seatbelt, so how can we get them to be safe? Like, work with them, don't fucking just judge them.
I had a interesting experience recently. So I did my
Back when Ron had a real job.
in fact, yeah, by the time this comes out, actually, I will probably no longer work for an international company. Um, by the time this, I think, right? Like if this, when does this come out? Like
Tomorrow?
3 weeks? Yeah. Oh shit, never mind.
We're
Yeah, well,
backdating this, right?
by the time this comes
Last
out,
week.
one way or another, I will no longer work for an international company. But I did a learning team
Is that
in
because you weren't,
Malaysia.
Ron, is that because you weren't culturally sensitive enough? You can't work for
Yeah.
international companies anymore?
Yeah, I used the C word and they're like, no, we don't let that guy in
Actually
anymore.
Run like a
works
red
way better
Interpol red
internationally.
notice.
Yeah.
Um,
Leave America.
but I did a learning team in Malaysia for at a construction site with Bangladeshi and Pakistani workers. There's probably one or two other
This is the one I was going to
nationalities.
ask you about, Ron, because
Yeah.
this is a good one.
And like um so we had a they didn't speak a lick of English. I had a translator. And so we decided, okay, we're going to do a pre-meeting with the translator. And I go and start talking about, okay, what a learning team is. And he's just giving me this blankest stare. And I'm like, do, do you speak English? Oh, a little bit, sir. And I'm like, oh shit, we're in trouble. So, luckily we had people who spoke Malay, and the workers spoke some Malay. So between the four of groups, we were able to, the other people in the room who spoke Malay, who understood English, who could translate some things into Bangladesh. It was a mess. But the really interesting stuff, was how just uninterested these guys were, and they were all guys, in saying anything negative about the job site, like at all, like no interest at all. Um, and also how uninterested they were in saying anything different than anyone else on their on the in with the other workers, or probably anyone, to be honest. But so like you'd see situations, for example, where I would ask them a question about, hey, do you ever run into this issue? And you start to see people nodding their heads, like, yeah, that's something I run into. But then someone would speak up and be like, no, that's something we never see. And then the people who were nodding their heads yes would be like, no, never see that ever. And then, other situations where, um, like I would ask them, okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, how good are these things at our job site? Oh, I'm sorry, on a scale of 1 to 5, like 1 is shit, 5 is excellent. And they're like, oh, it's like a 10 here. Like, like it's amazing, best job site
All of it.
ever. Yeah. It just and so we really had to like work around things, and we can talk about the workarounds we did to get, at some of the information we were trying to get at. But like just I mean, I've done lots of learning teams in my time, not just to, US, like American people, like Latin American and stuff like that. This was the hardest learning team by far, because our just worlds were not the same worlds.
Yeah.
And so
No,
bridging
and
that
even
gap
theirs,
was,
right? Like you had a caste system essentially. Then between that you had different nationalities, one
yeah,
of whom gets looked down on quite a bit and is mostly transient. I mean, there's no upshot to being the dude that's speaking out.
Nah.
And even on the far, I don't want to say far end of the spectrum, in terms of role, but when you look at like on the bridge of a ship or in the flight deck of an aircraft, right? These are people that have been through training and
Mm.
certifications for years, and it's still hard to
Yeah.
overcome
But I
that
think, and
challenge.
that's where, like, you don't just say globally we're rolling out learning teams, right? You go back to the first principle is we want
Well, of course
to,
you don't. That's
well,
you
exactly. I
you
mean,
want
and you definitely don't fucking send Ron by the sounds of it. Like,
he sucks ass.
um, but I think the question is like, okay, you can have a global kind of strategy to understand work and deconstrain work or something, deconflict work or something. And then in some cultures, learning teams might be a good solution. In Southeast Asia, I'd suggest work observations and sideline one-on-one conversations with questions like, how could we make this work better for the company? And then people can tap into their sense of duty to help the company to make suggestions and use the health and safety manager becomes pivotal in just actually being the point of facilitation for all of that. And you just go, you know what? Putting these people in a group, there's absolutely no way we're going to get fucking anything out of it because the social process that's going on in that group means that it doesn't make any sense. So, that's where I think this whole idea of just going, oh, globally, we're doing learning teams, culturally insensitive. Because it's like you're putting people in a situation that genuinely makes them anxious and uncomfortable. Like my job's on the line. Like if I say one word, if I look funny, if I do something like that's unfair. That's a psychological hazard right there. You should report that. Ron, you should be reported. Did you get any incident reports?
Man, if I had a nickel for each time
this fucking guy.
No, I mean 100%. I mean, that was the big lesson for me is like a one size fits all. And I guess the part that's the scariest for me is I could see how someone like me in my position would be like, okay, one size fits all. And you could go and do a learning team and you could get something that gives you an idea that, hey, we talked to the workers and we did this thing, check the box, move on with our lives. Yeah. But you're not getting at anything that's the real, actual messy details of these guys' work. Like you would be getting window dressing. And I think to your point, also creating a risk or exposing them to a risk in the process, right? And I think not understanding those tensions, not understanding the risks that are involved in you trying to mitigate risk is a big problem.
Yeah.
But I don't know why it's so hard when we do this sort of thing in a workplace. And it's a lot more obvious, you show up to France in jean shorts and a Kenny Chesney shirt, right? That stands out. Like you get feedback people know. And well, I don't know, maybe they don't. Maybe people are the jean short dude is blind to that sort of thing, but I think we rationalize it a whole lot more easily in an organization. And it's that savior thing that we've talked about before, right? Like now these folks definitely need my help. I mean, look at how oppressed or repressed they are.
I was just sorry, I couldn't help
it. A Kenny Chesney shirt.
I couldn't help but think about your government. These people need our help. All of the people need our help.
Yeah.
Well, not now.
Yep. No. Yeah. Fuck them.
Yeah. Pick and choose who needs your help.
Yeah. Well, there's an easy way to tell. I'm not going to go further on that. But that whole savior complex thing I think is critical here, right? It's and it comes back to the general idea of doing safety to people, right? Which is, I think, the big mistake that a lot of
that's the word TO, not doing safety to people.
Like wow. Wow, that's
do it,
Not as in fornicating with people who are believers in safety too, believers and practitioners.
Yeah. Well, and that's kind of what lovers of zero typically do. Like Dave. I think it was Dave and Drew labeled as lovers of zero. It's different.
So would that be so if a lover of zero and a safety 2 person got together, would that be multicultural?
Oh shit. Fuck. That would be some wild fucking right there. Like angry.
I'm so sad that I started this.
Yeah.
It hasn't gotten better.
No.
But so I guess the question becomes like, we agree that, okay, yeah, this kind of one size fits all approach doesn't really make sense. This get them to care more, try harder approach doesn't make sense. So like what makes sense?
But even things like even the tactical pieces, like even speak up doesn't make any sense in lots of cultures. So, I think organizations need to really stop and think is what are universal outcomes that we can have as universal. on us. And some of those things, like I said, which is we want to understand the work our people do better all around the world. Okay, now we need to design different ways of understanding the work based on different places. And then maybe there's another thing about people and capability and teamwork. And there was some research done, like in New Zealand, with Maori culture about cultural sensitivity and how those cultures work. And I think that the upshot for organizations, or the missed opportunity, is if you can tap in to national culture and understand and connect better with the people and give them something that makes sense to them, then they're more likely to fucking do it, right? You're more likely to get a better outcome. But for organizations, they need to be prepared to go, we will. And interestingly, when I talked to an organization recently, with some South American colleagues, they said people need to understand that, I forget the words that he actually used. But giving us something that works is more than just fucking translating it into Spanish. That was kind of the gist through the translator that I took away from that. And organizations think, oh, look at us, we're so culturally sensitive. We translate this into a different language. It's like, well done, pat yourself on the back. Did Google Translate
fucking
in 5
hero.
minutes, right?
Yeah. Thanks,
I
Mark.
think what's tough is this sort of Western view of things is also very often the youngest view of it, right? It's been around the least amount of time. And then it's arrogant, right? To think, oh, none of these folks have spoken up before. Well, they have. It just doesn't look the same as it does for us, right? That information gets transmitted. So I think it's easy a lot of times to look at it and just say, man, this isn't fucking happening. I'm watching it. They're not doing it. And for thousands of years, they've sorted out ways to speak up that just look and feel different than what we're used to seeing. So, for me, I think that's the toughest part to get around, is to understand, it's not a fear of communicating.
Yeah.
And it's not always that fear of being different, or afraid to stand out. It looks like that to us. And that's a tough thing to unpack.
And what's interesting is, like, understanding it. Like, we do some organizational assessment type work, and we're fortunate to work with one organization, your part of the world, in the US, that had
it's like next door to
Anglo work,
Magpie's
like
building here.
Anglo work groups. They had full Hispanic work teams. They had full Hispanic work teams with a Hispanic supervisor, full Hispanic work teams with an Anglo supervisor. And we're able to look at the differences and understand their resilience and how they worked. And when you look at the full Hispanic teams with a Hispanic supervisor, they're incredibly more resilient than Anglo teams or whatever. And on some of the areas like communication, deference to expertise, a whole bunch of things, when they worked inside their national culture, some of their sort of peer-on-peer learning, their kind of interpersonal stuff, because they're naturally a more team-orientated culture, was kind of incredible. But then we overlay these kind of hierarchical checklists and process and things, and it's actually beating the resilience out of them. They're native, like they're literally their native resilience. It's beating it out of them. But kind of that was
is that those basic, like, if you go back to Ed Schein, and is that those basic assumptions that he's talking about, you think, that add to that, right? We're not trying to unravel that. It just, everybody's in that same culture. They've got some basic level.
And I think this is the problem with culture, with and approaches to safety culture, is this idea that we take a construct that's meant to be descriptive and we make it normative, right? So culture is really just about, how does this work? Can we describe what's going on here? Yet we obviously say, if we see something that looks different to what we are used to or what we expect to see, then it's bad, because it doesn't meet the norms and expectations that we've got. This work group.
So how does that jive with, like, Hofstede's work, right? He's, the book was Culture's Consequences, was of 5 dimensions of national culture, now 6, with some renaming somewhat recently. Is that sort of descriptive, and then maybe a a misplaced desire to make it normative.
Yeah, I actually think that helps. I actually think every safety person should read that work, which is like where they've got those. And I've seen ones with even more than 6, like with 10 or 14 different constructs where national cultures sit on this like relatedness and a whole bunch of different dimensions. And you may work in an organization where you've got operations in countries, and like when you actually see just how different those cultures are and some of these kind of important ways of thinking and relating and behaving in workplaces, I don't think you'd design the programs that you've currently got.
No. And there's one in there, one of those ones that Hofstede talks about, it like individualism versus collectivism.
Yeah,
I think is massive when we're talking about the sort of design of safety.
and like the difference between, like, if you're a mining company, you've got operations in the States and you've got operations in parts of East Africa.
Chile.
Yeah, or Chile is another one. Like that's extremes, right?
Well, like Australia and the US,
I'll shoot
right?
your mother so that I can eat, or there's no point me eating if the rest.
Wait, which one is that? Is that?
And then the other one, and
that's the US.
You decide is there's no point me eating if the rest of us can't all eat as well. So you don't know which one's which, but they'd be examples that I'd use.
But go on
hypothetical examples.
You go to the Hofstede Institute, I think is what it's called, the website. You can compare on a cool little online tool, and then you can see what Dave's talking. Who's shooting whom on there?
Well, and I guess like to me, fundamentally, like what we're describing, like these fundamental, like you said, the shared assumptions, that are very deep, that I mean, by definition, they're just so ingrained in the structure, the social structures, they're not even thought about. It's like you don't think about breathing, you don't think about, how much pressure you put on your gas pedal when you drive, you just do it. It's muscle memory. It's similar to that. And then all of a sudden we're going to come in there and be like, hey, all that stuff, forget that and speak up. Like there's huge risk involved in that, huge inertia that's going to pull away from that. But to your point, Dave, like when you said like, hey, there's a source of resilience there, to me, like when you go back to, okay, how did this culture like come about? Where did it come from? Is it just randomness? Like, like we just threw like little bits of how humans should interact with one another in distributed random ways throughout the world? No, it's often like how those people figured out how to function effectively in their environment, which since it's lasted so fucking long is almost the definition of resilience.
Yeah.
And we're going to try to change that in like a day.
And I think that's the
with a slogan.
How fucking hard is it, right? Like really, like don't be lazy. Like it's not that.
I knew it was coming.
It's not like, or you've got to do what you've got to go and go. How do I understand, the characteristics of this culture and how I might leverage them for safety, right? And then how might I understand the characteristics of this culture so I can design safety processes and practices that kind of are going to be effective in this context. And like parts of the Middle East is always difficult in Islam countries because there's such a strong belief in, Allah's will. And I'm not, I'm less maybe in control of what's going to happen as my religion or my, I don't want to piss anyone off, but, as God might determine for me. So, when you get expats going into those environments, they start going on about, people don't take accountability and people don't do things, and they just fight it and fight it and fight it and fight it. But you can point people to the Quran and the importance of pride in place and work and responsibility and family and community and some of these things. They go, okay, now I can connect safety with something that makes sense to me. And I think, rather than just,
I think some of that isn't just
rather than going in and going, you're looking at the person responsible for your own safety.
Yeah.
But it's
not on the mirror.
It's not,
that sticker doesn't make any sense.
It's not just laziness, right? I think that can
in
be
English, not Arabic.
Part of the culture too is this like idea of exceptionalism. and I'm not talking just sort of American exceptionalism, but in
You are
certain parts of the
exceptional.
world,
You're,
in a lot of ways. But Ron's story earlier, right? This difference between those various work groups, it's really tough to I mean, you may not be lazy, but you also might not care. You have this
Jesus.
well, you've
That's
got
why
this
Ron,
ingrained but
and,
you've got this
I'm out.
ingrained
and
belief,
that's why
right?
Ron got fired.
Yeah, that this group is lesser than you, right? And it's really tough, I think, to overcome that and to tell somebody, no, man, you just have to be curious. And they're like, these people are fucking idiots. So I'm not curious and they need my help.
Yeah.
And I think that something that helps get around that is really trying to find, and I use this example a lot of the difference between translation and interpretation. You know, Google Translate will turn something into Spanish, Dave, as you said. Uh, an interpreter is the person who can translate that language, but also say, yeah, we're not going down this street, dude. Like that Google Translate isn't going to save your ass from going down the wrong street in the city or saying the wrong thing in a coffee shop, right? It's making those things culturally relevant. And so I think for folks who maybe aren't naturally inclined to do those things or who
Yeah.
have some barrier to do those things, it's really about finding somebody that you feel like you can be honest with as that interpreter who's saying, no, 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 dude, it looks like you said, Dave, in the Middle East, right? It looks like this lack of desire to be accountable. And I think it's anything but that. It's just
Yeah.
manifested completely differently than a Western mind would expect.
Yeah. I mean, what popped in my head is, I mean, that's almost like a very anthropological approach, right? And you're really just trying to find that informant who can bridge that gap for you and sort of help become a sense-making tool in
Oh boy.
effect. Like,
We had to get sense making in
So
here
so
somewhere.
would so just to let me so Ron,
Oh boy.
culture like
Oh, we made a face and everything.
culture. So I'm guessing like cultures, different cultures are meaningful boundaries, and the interpreter's kind of playing this role of kind of like facilitating joint cognitive activity
I
across
knew that was fucking coming.
these meaningful boundaries. Is that what you're talking about there?
Is that where the QR code will
Unintentionally,
lead
yeah,
us?
that's what I was talking.
Ron's talking about his fucking PhD again. We know. We know.
I mean, in this, and a very
Oh,
serious
God.
development has come up where Ron's sort of prepaying for his tombstone and
Yes.
just trying to get that QR code made up so you can put it. You know, you don't even need a name, just a QR code to your Google Scholar account, right? It
Why
just
do
says,
I'm not the one with all the papers.
well, everyone knows Dave's papers. They see his name.
Well,
They've read it.
Oh, that's fair. That's fair.
I don't even need a QR code, boys,
Yeah, you don't write.
or speak intelligently.
You're illiterate.
yeah. It's all graphs and networks,
Yeah,
numbers,
exactly.
formulas.
Crayons,
Yeah.
all in crayon.
So, like, I guess, what do people do with this? Like, okay, you know, I mean, this is all well and
So
good.
some of the so this idea of understanding the balance between standardization and localization, right? Like as an organization, if you're working across cultural boundaries, you've got to you can't swing this pendulum all the way to standardization, right? You've actually got to localize enough that it makes sense based on the cultural diversity. So I'd use something like reciprocity, right? Like your approach needs to be at least as variable as your cultures kind of are. So depending on your organization, that where you sit on that spectrum of standardization and localization is going to differ but needs to be thought about. And the second point is this idea of still as an organization, you want to be, I'd say, globally consistent but locally relevant. So this idea of it's really important.
He prepared for this.
No, it's really. I was saying I had
He's
these
got all the
conversations.
talking points here.
Yeah, it's good. It's important. It's important. And
Yeah,
there's like
it is.
one person that may have still be listening. So that for that one person, fucking bang, like 10 points in IQ. So, but this idea of like globally consistent, locally relevant, because organizations still want to feel like they're moving their organization in the same direction, right? In one direction. And so you can have these globally consistent kind of like outcomes you're after, which is like, it's really important to us to, as best as possible, understand the work our people do and deconstrain it, better enable it, whatever. Okay, let's make it locally relevant how we do that. And there's nothing
Dave,
more than that.
just,
like, it's fucking not that. It's not that fucking hard. Like,
I want to highlight something you said, which is unusual, because you skipped past it pretty quick, which is standardization of the outcome, right? Or standardization of the understanding is different than standardizing the input. And I think that's a change that people
or the
can
process.
Right.
Yeah.
It's, just because it looks different or we say it different, when I see it being done, doesn't make sense. That doesn't mean
And
it's
even
not
if we want,
standardized, right?
we want workers to better understand the work plan for the day and the hazards and risks associated with the work. In some cultures, that might look like a very participative pre-job planning process where people ask questions, the supervisor asks questions, people all contribute, all happens. In other cultures, it may look like, actually, no, it's the supervisor slowing down, going point by point, being confident that everyone knows what's going on. Completely different pre-job brief, but the intention is, what process is going to make sense in this contract or work in this context to better prepare people for the work that day. Like, fuck, just standardize what you're trying, just get clear on what you're trying to achieve and do the work of making it kind of happen. So whether it's outcome or priority or whatever you want to standardize, like, I think you move your organization in the same direction without sending Ron to fucking Malaysia to do a learning team.
So everybody can shake their head.
Yes. Some of those data center companies just have way too much fucking money, man. Like, it's just,
it's so stupid.
Sending that guy 1K and that guy around the world.
Ew.
They don't wait in line for the airplane.
Yeah, like just
speaking about 1K,
all the other losers bored.
Speaking about fucking 1K over here, I had to spend 8 hours in LAX airport because fucking Ron couldn't even be bothered hanging out with me. I deliberately planned a full day layover in LA on my 30 or 40-hour return trip home just to spend some time with Ron. 2 days before goes, oh, you know what? That's not going to work for me. Yeah, maybe next time.
But in Ron's culture, in his defense, right? If we make that culturally relevant, that was no big deal for him.
Oh, so that's that's a California thing, is it?
Well, it's a 1K guy.
Yes, it is. I mean, you got to understand me. You want to know what's fucking awesome is I did that because I had to take an earlier flight, and then I ended up getting stuck in Denver for a long time.
What the fuck?
Until I ended up flying home that night, so I could come. Yeah.
So he ghosted both of us.
Yeah.
If I got another podcast,
I could have taken my United flight.
Ghosted.
I could have taken my United flight via Denver and hung out, but instead I went American direct to LA to spend more time with Ron.
No, that was dumb.
Worked out great. Speaking of boundaries, that was a big one.
Christ.
Couldn't get across that.
So one other thing I want to add on culture though before we fuck off here. Sure. And I think it piggybacks on what we're talking about. It's worth reflecting on. We're trying to think about how to solve the culture problem that we see in some other culture, but that's a two-way street. Like, go back to the idea that like when you're in the culture, you almost by definition don't recognize it. Because it's just so ingrained in you. So there's aspects of our culture that would make implementation of some things very difficult. And I think for me, when
like a Kenny Chesney t-shirt.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. If we're going to implement that
That's what Dave came home from Texas with.
Did he really?
Inviting Steve Harvey to speak at a conference.
Yeah, exactly. But to me, when I think of it that way, I start to think, okay, well, we're coming at this, back to your point about process versus outcome. We're coming at this with like, here's something that we know works, but no, we know that works in our culture. What if we built that from the ground up at the other culture? We say, here's the problem we're trying to solve. How would you solve it? In your culture, using your sorts of language, your sorts of approaches, your sorts of perspectives. I think that to me is a much more functional way of doing what we're trying to do.
Yeah, I think that was probably worth saying. I hate to say it, but that was probably worth saying. It's Friday morning here, boys. It's
Fucking
like
time, bitches.
it's like 8 o'clock on Friday morning. It's like
Ron got one.
yeah.
Nailed it.
Yeah.
I'm out. I quit.
That's right. Man, I love that for you.
So we solved it. How good?
Solved it.
What
We
good
solved
advice?
culture.
All the
Finally.
big,
Yeah, I mean, with time to spare.
all this. Yeah.
And I gotta tell you, listen, I feel like we've had a couple really good episodes that Dr. Nobschlung could agree with a lot on.
Yeah.
You know, this idea of sort of Western ways of thinking. We had religion in here a little bit, Dave, right?
Yeah.
I think Dr. Schlung would be a fan, and I hope he comes back and
Yeah, another
wasn't
review.
just
I'm
episode
sure.
one. We'll
I'm
get
sure that's going to
58.
happen. Yes.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Well, look, a boy can dream.
Share it around, like, share,
I would-
subscribe.
How much money would you pay to
Smash that
see him
like
in a
button.
Buck Safety Make Money T-shirt?
Oh, I mean, I was going to say I'd pay for the shirt, but I think that happens already.
Yeah. I'm still waiting for my shirt. Although I got a bunch of merch the other day. I got my Circle Jerks punk rock safety glass. I got my capacity glass.
Yes.
I got a bunch of shit turn up. I got my Circle Jerk sticker on my laptop. It's
You got those horrible limited edition slides.
Hey, I reckon I'm going to make them work.
Oh.
I'm going to make them work.
Yeah,
Well, you're doing better than
yeah,
Ron and his hobbit feet.
No, I burnt those things in fucking tribute.
Excellent.
They're not on the website anymore. They were awful.
Oh,
Yeah.
so
You
they're
can
like
smell
limited.
the lead.
I'm going to put them on the shelf then. Perfect.
Yeah, you've got a 1 of 3 pair of slides.
No one else bought the slides.
I think
while
we're
they
the
were-
only 3 assholes that did it.
Oh, so good.
Oh, good.
So we'll replace
Yeah,
them with some.
We're so good at selling them by talking shit about them all the time.
Yeah. No,
Man,
really
I'm serious. I want a notebook. I go some stationery. Replace it with some stationery.
okay. We'll work on it. I mean, if there's anything, it's a shortage of merch, so
Yeah.
we'll mock up a couple. Well, that'd be good in a boardroom though, to just flip open a fuck safety, make money.
Oh,
notebook.
journal, like a moleskin journal with the FSMM printed on the front of the journal in black.
Yeah.
A little
That's-
punk rock
okay,
safety
okay.
embossed logo.
Wow.
They'll fly off the
Yeah.
shelves, Ben. At
Fly off the shelves. Yeah, we'll sell
least one per month will fly off the
at
shelves.
at least mid single digits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One for each listener.
Look, if you're still on, and I think if we're honest, you're not.
You're not.
To our imaginary listeners, smash that like button.
You know what I'm thinking though? We've got to start getting some ideas for episodes from our listeners because this is getting fucking hard, boys, to carry you. You boys are heavy, and I've been carrying you on my back for the last few episodes. So
I love that. This fucking guy.
Yeah.
Maybe we should post a little. I think the kids are all posting things on LinkedIn. It's
On the
real
LinkedIn?
Popular. Yeah, real popular with
definitely all the
youth.
kids.
Look, if you have an idea, is it info@punkrocksafety.com?
I don't know. It goes to you, man. I hope.
they can DM the LinkedIn account. They can send a message to the LinkedIn
anything.
account.
Yeah.
Hit us.
Send us some
Look,
shit.
if you're unlucky, we might invite you to come on.
I mean, look, at the end of the day, just walk
talk
into
about the topic yourself.
If we use their topic, do we like get them like something merch or something?
Yeah, well, if we pick their topic,
Send them
maybe
some
Ben can
stickers
give
or
us-
something.
like a
But
misprint.
if you need to find us, I reckon you can just walk into any.
You get some slides.
Yeah, walk into any airport bathroom and you'll get Ben's number off the wall.
Yeah.
Excellent. Literally any airport.
Yeah,
Any.
I was in Bozeman.
in Boise.
That's actually Bozeman.
Where is Bozeman?
Boise.
Montana.
Oh
Beautiful.
wow,
Yeah. No, it's in there.
it's in there.
All right. I think we've solved so many things.
Yeah.
Where my number is. Merch. New ideas.
punkrocksafetymerch.com.
Yeah. And last but not least, working across cultural boundaries, I think. Dave, is that the right
Solved
way to
it.
capture it?
Solved it.
Solved it.
Yeah.
We'll see you for episode 29.
20 fucking 9.
Coming up soon.
Bye.
Bye.